Hello all, wie geht's, guten Tag, and all that jazz. Anyway, I wanted to take a moment and talk about a game that is kind of dear to me, and that is, I guess, the Remnant franchise, we can call it now, was Remnant from the Ashes. I love that original game, kind of picked it up on a whim, just like the way it looked. I like Souls types. Honestly, I didn't even realize it was a Souls type until I started playing it. I thought the graphics were a little subpar, but when I first started running across the route, they were some of the creepiest and cartoonish at the same time characters. Usually I don't go for that kind of thing. I like the more realistic kind of look and feel of games. And if you follow me, you know I usually play Hunt Showdown, which has a pretty realistic feel to it as far as its aesthetics go. But anyway, coming to Remnant, I wanted to give my thoughts on this, a review of sorts, at least Remnant 2 here. So Remnant 2, as you can see me playing here, has some definite new additions. You can see, if you're familiar with it, I picked the handler archetype, which that's new to this game, is the archetypes. This is early in my play, so I'm kind of sucking it up there. I'm going to show you some footage from later on once I get my feeler back in to this game. But if you're not familiar, Remnant is a Souls type, they'd say, but I would say that this game has its own soul, unlike a lot of Souls types. This game also has a lot of mechanics that might be more familiar in Destiny or the likes, and being a looter shooter type of game mixed with Souls play. So it also has great online co-op, which is a little buggy right now at release. I got the early release. It's pretty smooth otherwise. I've got a couple other gripes, but otherwise this game released in really good state, even early release, and I'm sure we will see some of the problems with it ironed out quickly. But as you can see here, some of the new elements, the Dragon Heart, if you're familiar with that, that's kind of like your Estus Flask, but it's your healing thing. But you have several different versions you can use in this game, and then you can modify it with these modifiers here. So these runestone looking things. Anyway, you can equip up to 3 of them, and they change depending on your character's level. They get a little better, although you could probably not equip them because the benefit is fairly minimal. But like a lot of games like this, it's all about incrementally increasing those stats, and just one more thing to help you. But yeah, so the new Dragon Heart types, you can kind of modify your character. Right here you only see one. I'm going to show a little later where I've got 3 different ones in my inventory, and I've got a favorite so far of my own. Maybe there's other ones out there I haven't discovered yet. On the last world pretty much, so very close to the end of this game. Got about 30 hours of gameplay in so far. And unlike the first one, I do plan on replaying some sections of this. So it does have the adventurer mode that the first one had, where you can go back and replay some of the other levels, and I believe some other new modes, possibly that I have not checked out yet. But going back there, you'd seen you have archetypes and sub-archetypes. I chose the handler, in which you get this doggy companion. Kind of wish I went with a different one. Everybody suggested this as a solo play, but I've been really enjoying the co-op. So anyway, it is what it is. It gives me a chance to maybe create a new main archetype and give me a reason to still play the game later on. But here, so now this is one of the first bosses I want to highlight. Definitely not the first boss in the game, but this cube boss just shows how they really outdid themselves with boss design, level design, everything. So yes, this is kind of a boss type enemy here, and they really went all out on the ideas here and really making fights unique and stuff and fun. So kind of like puzzles almost mixed in with boss fight. Some of them are more stereotypical boss fights where you just shoot the boss and it's a weak point until it dies. But as you can see here, a lot of them are fairly unique, so pretty cool to this game. Just going to say off the bat, this is an excellent game, even with some of the issues it's having, which the biggest one I've seen is getting kicked from the game in the middle of it, especially in co-op. Like levels won't load, things like that. I think they've already improved it, because last time I played, I didn't have any issues at all. It was running pretty smooth. I don't know, I guess I got to check the version. But yeah, what else can I say about this? This is, in my opinion, one of the best games ever released. I mean, and I don't say that lightly. As a veteran gamer, I am not young. I've been playing pretty much since the original Zelda days. So I'm pretty familiar with video games, and, it takes a lot to keep me entertained now, to give something fresh. And I'll say that they have done that with Remnant. Especially Remnant 2 here. It is a beautiful game. Looks beautiful. Where the other one, I'd say, was more of a AA look to it. This one, although maybe later in the current generations, I'm playing this one on the Xbox Series X. As you can see, runs beautifully. I've got this on quality mode. There is performance and balance modes as well, which the game looks great in also. And runs really smooth. In some ways it looks better in performance mode, even the quality of it, I'd say, because you still have a beautiful looking game that runs at 60 frames per second. The balance mode does. The performance mode allows you to run at uncapped 60 frames per second. So I don't know, I'm not measuring it, so I assume that it can even go above 60 frames per second is what that is. So I believe I highlight some gameplay, I don't know when, of quality versus performance. So here's the co-op section of the game, and this is another unique area. Like, you've got to kind of work together, and you got these walls that open up. Just kind of highlights how the level design, it's not just run and gun, although that's probably about 80% of it. A lot of it has some really unique areas that you can miss out on a lot of things. Now, you could play the game from beginning to end and just probably run straight through it, but you're going to miss out on a lot of cool stuff. And this is one of those optional sub-dungeons that you get in the game. Like, if you're familiar, you have like main dungeons with the main bosses, but you also have the side dungeons where you're going to get a lot of cool gear, loot, and experience some of the cool enemies. So yeah, like here, watch out for these, because you can get crushed by these doors. Which, that finger snap you saw me do there are some new perks that you essentially get from your companions or your architect or your archetype, if I can say that correctly. So it said objective success here, and my partner's left. Oh, you just saw me get crushed by the door, but anyway, my partner's left there. I came back to that map later, and there was a ton of crap that we missed through those doorways. They just kept going and going, and some gear that you could pick up. And anyway, this is a really cool boss weapon you see me using here. All kinds of unique boss weapons. That's the hard part about this game is, the limited scrap that you get to buy stuff. You got to really be choosy about which weapons you want to upgrade and things. But that's the fun thing about this game too. It gives the replayability is go back through and maybe upgrade some of the weapons you didn't get a chance to. So what you see me doing there, those purple things, they are a resource material that you get to unlock a really cool archetype later and get some really cool gear later. So you're going to see me actually here in a second in this video, you're going to see me change my archetype. I included a hunter, but then there's a summoning class, which, some of them you just basically got to pay scrap to get to. Others you got to find the materials and the levels. And then you have to find certain areas. In this case, with the summoning archetype, you have to find an altar in the, I believe it's called the Ulud area, and so this is one of the Ulud bosses. I actually beat this boss here playing co-op, but I believe this is me playing on my actual campaign. I was playing on somebody else's campaign. which that's one thing I don't know if I care for a lot. You play in somebody else's campaign, you kind of spoil a little bit of what's to come if you're trying to play through your own campaign, because I'd already fought this boss, so he wasn't a surprise whenever I came, or this thing wasn't a surprise. But as you see, another unique kind of boss fight. If you look right at it while you're shooting and it's more vulnerable, you build up a status effect there. I believe it's called fear or something. You can actually get your own modifier. If you're familiar, you get gun modifiers that build up, and then you can trigger them. It's kind of like magic a little bit in this game, I'd say. Provides some exceptionally powerful upgrades, anywhere from some minimal power up to some exceptionally powerful, especially with the fear upgrade that you have. I think I'm using fear against the fear boss here, actually. I think you can just see it. It's that red ball floating there. Anyway, pretty cool. So yeah, as you look at this boss, it builds fear, so you have to look away to lower it, but it's more vulnerable as it's inflicting the status right there. As you can see that bar building. But if you're quick, you get some shots that cause major damage in there, and then look away, let that go down. Just some unique boss design. Definitely not the most challenging boss or the most unique, but that's where they really outdid themselves on this game. You could tell they put a lot of thought into how they could make the bosses more unique and things, and make the gameplay more interesting from the first game. So there you go. You see me using the fear status. That's that ball floating. So I believe you may have got that from that boss that I was fighting. It might be like a boss modifier. I kind of forget at this point. But very powerful against other enemies there. As you can see, just kind of melting through the big guys. Making short work of them. And now the armor I'm wearing right there, you have to find that in a pretty cool place. It's like a spaceship. It's one of the levels floating through space, and one of my favorite new additions. If you're familiar, there's different worlds in this game, and the spaceship world was really creepy and cool. Had some really creepy enemies in it. Reminiscent of stuff from the Alien universe. Actually, some of the root enemies are very similar to the Alien from the movie Alien, so you can tell they pulled a lot of inspiration from different sci-fi, and that's what I think is unique about this game in some ways, is they very coolly blend sci-fi with fantasy. So things like Pans are essentially an alien species. And then now they've also added the Fae, which I will say are not my favorite new enemies. Oh, and then here's like a side puzzle. Just kind of, there's so many of these and stuff, but some of them actually are going to challenge you if you don't use the internet. They are very difficult to figure out if you don't cheat. And I actually figured this puzzle out on accident. There's 2 different doors that you can open, but so many different combinations. And just like through some lucky guessing and I don't know, educated guess, I guess you could say, I figured it out. Here's the Faithless Thicket. I kind of put this out of place. I meant to show those together, but here I am collecting more of that resource, and I'm starting to wear pieces of the Summoner armor, and I have the full set here in a little bit. So it takes, to get the full set and the archetype, to kind of role play all that together. I don't know, it's probably going to take you about 40 of those resources there. Anyway, this is not a how-to video or tips and tricks. This is kind of my review and just highlight some of the cool things. So here's an altar that you have to find, and you can develop this armor here using the different resources. Now, there are parts of this to get the Summoner archetype I already have. You find it at this altar as well, but you have to take it back and do some other things for that. That's not too hard to figure out, actually. It's kind of self-explanatory. I wouldn't think you need to Google it, but I imagine a lot of people do. Yeah, but some really cool puzzles, really challenging. If you don't really want to do them, you don't have to. You can get through the main game without racking your brain too much. The main quest lines are pretty simple. I think they did that on purpose so that they're not ostracizing their audience, but then they also wanted to give a challenge to the people that really wanted to look for challenges. Anyway, there's my full summoner set armor. It is a very heavy armor. You figure it being closer to kind of like a mage class or summoner class or something, that it might be a light armor, but no, it's a pretty heavy armor. Oh, and there's again, kind of out of place because I did that first, but what you just saw me click on there is what you need to do to get the summoner archetype. And if you notice, the book was very reminiscent from a particular movie, if you know what I mean. And I think a lot of people that play this game are probably fans of that horror film, so there's another horror inspiration there for you, just a lot of different ones. So all in all, really cool game. Here you see me. You got lots of different options for your archetypes, and then you can pick 2 archetypes, have a sub-archetype. If you go back to the beginning of the video, you'll see I just have on the left side, but later on you get to actually choose 2. And right here, I think you'll see me using my summoner ability. It is not the ability you start with, but here, let's let it play out.
Oh god, that's over.
Thanks for watching, and I definitely recommend that you pick up this game, especially if you like Souls type or just good games in general with great design and a lot of thought put in them. So quickly, I know I got some lo-fi stuff here, but I am upgrading my equipment, so I hope to put out better quality content soon.